And a good Tuesday night, everyone. Thanks for joining for this Tropics After Dark. Of course, now, as you probably heard, we do officially have Tropical Storm Fred out there in the Caribbean, south of Puerto Rico right now, and it is still moving pretty quickly to the west at 17 miles per hour. So, thanks for joining tonight. How you doing, Shannon, Angel, Crystal, Joby on here? Thank you for joining. Christina from Panama City. Definitely keep an eye on this from Panama City, Christina. And Karen, thanks for joining tonight. Holly as well. All right, so let's talk about Fred. And if you were with me earlier today at 7 o'clock, we talked a little bit about the future track and some scenarios, and really from 7 to now, although it's named Fred now, there hasn't been a whole lot of change. I'll show you the new cone in just a second, and the timing, and kind of the different scenarios and what we might see. How you doing, Casey? Thanks for joining tonight. Lori and Eric also, thank you for joining tonight. So let me just show you kind of some of the things that we're looking at. There's a look at current satellite on Tropical Storm Fred, and really still not very impressive on satellite. Like I told y'all earlier, it's still dealing with some some shear and some dry air mainly that has gotten into, how you doing, Shane, into the actual core of the system. And so yeah, we weren't expecting much development over this for the next really day or so. And right now it's south of Puerto Rico, and fortunately it's not very well developed. So even on the north side, as the storm is kind of skirting Puerto Rico right now, they're not really getting much in terms of impact. Yeah, I'm sure there's a little bit of rising water there in the south coast, and maybe a few showers, but other than that, really not much happening on there. You can see the radar there from Puerto Rico, and yeah, you can see some showers there in the southern part of the island, but a lot of the stuff is to the south right now. So fortunately for them, it does look like this is going to pass to the west, and things really shouldn't be too bad for them moving forward. So, because the bulk of the rainfall, especially, is staying south of them too. So that's good. And then this will continue to the west. And then finally, so I told you earlier, let's watch the motion of this. Still going west at 17, the National Hurricane Center says, and then this will be pushing west-northwest over Hispaniola after this, and so that might affect this a little bit. Now, it's not very well developed right now, so when it goes over that mountainous terrain of Hispaniola, it might not do much to it, right? I mean, if this was a well-formed hurricane that went over Hispaniola, it would wreck this thing. But the fact that it's not very well developed, go over Hispaniola, it can't really knock anything out, right? And sometimes, unfortunately, when you have a big hurricane that goes over an island like that, it can really disrupt them. But when you have a wave that's not really well developed yet, it can't really do much to it, right? Because it's not much there right now. And so when it emerges off the island, it's not really in recovery mode because it was never really anything in the first place. And so that's going to be interesting to watch as it goes over the island and then comes off, to the north of it and maybe goes south of Florida. That's where we could see some development as conditions look like there could be a little bit more conducive then. So let me show you here what I'm talking about. Here's a look at the latest cone from the National Hurricane Center, and I'll show you a little bit more detail in a second. But this is their cone. I like to look at the official forecast. And so what we see here is the storm that's going to be pushing over, the Hispaniola, and emerging off the island by Thursday morning at 8 a.m. And then, according to this track and a lot of the models, it looks like it might stay north of Cuba. That's not good news for development. It's good news for Cuba, but not good news as far as, interacting with some of the land masses, because if it stays obviously off the island there to the north, well then, you get more of a chance for some development, right? If you keep a tropical storm in the water and off of land, north of the island like this, and then into the eastern Gulf, well, if this verifies, then it's going to be over water starting 8 a.m. Thursday and really all the way possibly to the Florida Panhandle. Conditions are not perfect. They'll still have some shear, maybe some dry air out there, but if it stays over water, that's the fuel source for these things, and obviously we don't want that to happen, but it does look like that could be the case. So long term here, really it's hard to say what type of storm we're going to be looking at if this thing does get into the eastern Gulf, because first and foremost, we got to see if it even survives there, right? It got to get through this island chain first, because if this track is a little bit more south, and goes over all the islands, it's going to disrupt it a little bit more, right? And so it's not going to have as much time in the water. Could still reemerge to the Eastern Gulf, but again, from now until the evening hours on Friday, there's a lot of scenarios that could still play out. So what we know right now and what we see right now on the cone is that, a lot of, now notice, I told y'all earlier, portions of Alabama, so like Mobile area there, coastal Alabama area, and some other areas as well, the extreme western and northern part of the cone there, you're in it now, and that stretches all along the Florida Panhandle and down the Florida Peninsula. So like I told y'all earlier, even Mississippi Gulf Coast, Alabama, and the Florida Panhandle down the peninsula, everyone keep an eye on this, right? Because, if it takes that extreme south and western part of the cone, then we could see these areas being impacted. That's not the likely scenario, but still you're in the cone. And like I always tell you, if you're in the cone, you really have equal shots toward the end of the forecast, especially that 4 to 5 day part of it, where it's kind of polka dotted there, right? Not as much confidence there. And that's why, we've seen folks in the center this far out not even take an impact from a storm like this. So something to consider. But with all of that said, like I showed you guys earlier, here's a look at the latest cone in a little bit more detail. And, you can zoom in a little bit. This is the end of their center line. And this, they're forecasting this to be, August 15th at 7 p.m. Is that Sunday? Yeah, Sunday at 7 p.m. 65 miles per hour, gust up to 75. Okay, so they've bumped up the intensity that we saw yesterday. If you remember yesterday, the intensity was at, I believe, 45 or 50. So they bumped it up now, potential winds up to 65. That's only 10 less than a hurricane, right? So that's what I was telling you earlier. Don't be shocked when this thing gets into the Eastern Gulf, and we could see it get into a Category 1 hurricane stage. So right now the forecast is 65, but that's not far off from a hurricane. Now, the end of the track here, if you're looking at the center line, right? But remember, the center line is just the center line. It's just really for guidance to show you what the center of the cone is. That does not mean this is the most likely landfall spot. It's just the center of the cone. So when you zoom out, so I would say right now, the center of the models and the center of the cone, is going to be somewhere from Panama City down Port St. Joe, Apalachicola, all the way over here. So, this area, if you live in this area, if you have friends and family there, I tell you, look, keep an eye on Fred. Keep an eye on Fred going into this weekend. So let me see, right, that was the 15th, I said? That was Sunday. Okay, so yeah, going into the end of this weekend, keep an eye on Fred. So, and zooming out here, let me show you what we have. We go out here a little bit. Let me delete that. Let's go to the western part of the cone, right? So folks over there, I said Mobile was in it, and it looks like Mobile is maybe just outside of the cone right now, but you get the point. A lot of Alabama there is in the cone, right? The western part, and this includes Pensacola, Fort Walton, Destin. I just got back from Pensacola. Beautiful area along the coast, but all those beaches there and all those areas along the coast, got to keep an eye on this. That's the western part of the cone, and you go all the way. Look, all these areas down here, along the beach resort areas there, and then all the way to the east here, right? The eastern part of the cone. That includes all these areas down here, the western part, right? Sarasota, Tampa, Spring Hill, Cedar Key. So a lot of folks right now, right? You can't narrow it down, but a lot of folks in the end part of the cone. And as we get closer, we'll be able to narrow this down a little bit. But right now, center part of the Florida Panhandle looks like the most likely spot. But again, if you're in the left or the right portion of this, and look how far right? I mean, look, the right part of the cone here, we're talking about Jacksonville, Palm Coast, Daytona, Cocoa, all down the east here. If it would take that northern part of the track, it might not even get into the Gulf of Mexico, right? The eastern part of the track would even avoid the Gulf. It would go up the east coast of Florida. So we got a lot of different things to watch right now. And, moving forward, that's going to be something to keep an eye on. Now, these are the models that ran, and helped the National Hurricane Center kind of form their 10 p.m. cone. And you can see it right there on that Apalachicola area to the west, Panama City. That area right there of the Florida Panhandle is where a lot of them are clustered there. But the game by now. Y'all are seasoned hurricane trackers with me. These things go left and right, and they continue to do that, especially when we're dealing with a storm that's not really well developed right now. It's just not. and has a few obstacles and could weaken a little bit. Maybe a center reforms. Look, there's a lot of things that can still happen. So expect these tracks to go like this a little bit more, right? I don't think we're quite locked in yet. Although as we get a little bit closer, you'll see that they will start narrowing down, and we will start to be able to, hone in on a location at the end of it. So yeah, we might see shifts west. We might see shifts east. And I can tell you overnight last night, I had posted, an after dark update. I like to do those in the overnight hours in case anybody's up with me. It was similar to this, right? I had posted that it shifted west a little bit around this area. So we haven't seen any huge shifts today. So they've kind of stayed steady. What I like to look for are trends, and today we've seen not much of a trend, right? Maybe a little bit east, but not much. So we'll see what happens in the next 3 or 4 different runs and see if there's any trends east or west. But right now we're looking at the Florida Panhandle, portions of that around very close to the Apalachicola area. In fact, is what we're kind of looking at currently. There's a look at Fred out there, south of Puerto Rico. Look at the dry air still around it a little bit, in close proximity. We saw some of that, wrapping in today and keeping it at bay a little bit. Regina, yeah, there's one behind it, by the way. That's way out there by Africa right now. That's going to be another long tracker that's going to probably go to the west and could become Grace, I believe, next. So something to, something to watch. But right now, obviously the important one to keep an eye on is, Fred first and foremost, and then we'll worry about that one behind it. I think it's Invest 95, if I remember right. The National Hurricane Center right now, if you go back to their graphical forecast here, there it is. Big yellow thing coming this way to the west. So we're in kind of that time of the year where we look toward the, Cabo Verde Islands. It used to be the Cape Verde Islands, but over toward Africa, this is where that wave train comes. This is where Fred comes from. This is where probably Grace, this one's going to be coming from behind it. So like I told y'all on the page, we're getting to that heart of the season where we usually have that lull mid-July into early August, and then you get to mid-August and it's pretty active through October. So that's probably where we are right now, and really, can expect to stay for the next couple of months. Let's see what we have here. Yeah, Jennifer, you're right. Probably not the worst thing the Orlando conference was scheduled, because keep in mind, this weekend, even if it doesn't go right over the Orlando area, that area will be east of the storm, and so there'll probably be some nasty weather there this weekend. So probably not the best place to be for this weekend. Cameron says golf is 86. Yeah, it is very warm. So look, warm water is not an issue with this. The water is warm enough the entire path to the Gulf, right? But as I always say, it doesn't take just one ingredient to for these things to strengthen. If warm water was the only thing that mattered, everything would become a Cat 4 or 5. But no, there's land interaction, there's upper level winds, there's dry air, there's shear, there's all kinds of things to worry about. That these storms have to worry about. And that's why we don't have Cat 4s and 5s all the time, because the ingredients really have to be perfect for that to happen. So, but one thing is true, that the water temperatures are not going to be the issue for Fred. The water temperatures are plenty warm enough. No problem, Carol. Thanks for the update. Prayers for dissipation for the Alabama Gulf Coast. Yeah, all the Gulf Coast, right? Yep, Karen says, I've never learned to discount any storm until it's made landfall. That's true. Anything out there can do funny things sometimes. Got to keep an eye on them. How you doing, Spencer from offshore? Good to see you on here. I appreciate that. Let's see. Ethel said a breakup in your future. How you doing, Gwendolyn? Good to see you on here. Regina. Angela asks, Louisiana is good. Looks like it right now, right? Portion of Louisiana, if you would take that extreme western portion of the cone, it would get close at the end. I never like to say somebody is 100% safe when it's way out there and not very well developed right now. So I will agree with you that the Louisiana looks good right now, but I won't say that Louisiana is 100% out of the woods for the storm just yet, but it does look good. I'll give you that. Let's see. Yeah, Regina, looks like a Florida hit somewhere along Florida. Brandon doesn't look like a Texas storm. I don't know what would happen. It would have to be really weak, really nothing at all to drift that far west. It would miss that trough and just kind of continue drifting west toward Texas. Not a likely scenario, but as always, that is a less than 1% chance. But I know that scenario that would have to happen for that to happen, but it's not a likely scenario. Texas looks really good for this one. How you doing, Regina from Houston? Casey, thanks for joining. Let's see here. What's the water temperature off the Florida west coast? I think I checked earlier. I didn't have them up right now. Let me see real quick if I can look that up. Florida west coast. Let's see. Water temperatures in the Gulf. Looks like about 86. 86 degrees off that 85 to 86 degrees west of Florida in the in the Gulf. So plenty warm enough in that area in the Gulf. And then even a little bit more to the west of just off the coast, we're looking at 87 and 88 degrees. So the water temperature is not the problem for this thing, right? Not going to be the problem for this thing. So something to keep in mind there. Let's see. Joining late. Have you shown the Windy app? I did not show the Windy app, Crystal. I mean, I can show the Windy app. Let's see. It might not have. Let's see. Let's see the Windy app and see what we're looking at. Let's look at GFS. As far as timing goes, let's take this into like Friday at 7 p.m. and you can see, look, on the Windy app even, it's not showing much. It's just a very open wave at that point, right? This is the GFS model. And then you start to see something by Sunday at 8 p.m. and there's that center right west of Tampa. This is Sunday evening. And then it's very weak on the current run of the GFS. Now, the European model was a little bit stronger and very close to where the National Hurricane Center has their center of circulation or has their center of the cone. So, yeah, there's a look at kind of what the Europeans think. And this is very close to where the National Hurricane Center is. South of Apalachicola there, the European model has it. So, not much to show in the Windy app right now because the model's really not picking up on anything very strong currently. So, yeah, something to keep in mind there. Nothing very aggressive with this, but I do think if this thing gets into the Gulf relatively put together, we could see a Cat 1 hurricane from this. So it's really going to depend on what the presentation looks like when it gets into that eastern Gulf. Very hard to know right now what we could be looking at moving forward with that. So, keep that in mind. It's just really hard to know right now when it's way out there, but there is the potential that this thing does become a hurricane later on in the forecast. And in case you're wondering about timing, this is indicating Sunday at 6 p.m. from the European model. So it does look like Sunday evening. Even the National Hurricane Center, I believe, was, they have 8 p.m. Sunday just off the coast there of Florida. So there you go. No problem, Regina. No, Brett, I don't think you should be worried about the yacht in Madisonville, Louisiana for this one right now. This does look like it's going to stay east of Louisiana unless it pulls a really, really big trick on us. Louisiana looks pretty good right now. Doesn't look like a stall, Tracy. It really doesn't. It looks like, I don't know if it's going to be moving very quickly, but it doesn't look like anything's going to stop it because the reason why it's going to be pushing north is it's going to feel a weakness there and it's going to continue to ride around that high pressure. So it doesn's look like at this point anything's going to kind of block it behind. So that's good. Keith said Jim Cantore was in the Pensacola area. Was he there doing hurricane stuff for this? Let's see. Eric says, any chance it slows down vacation plans starting Monday in Perdido Key? It's gonna slow down when it starts to interact with the islands and round that high pressure. I don't know if it's gonna slow down that much though. For now, as long as this thing stays east of Perdido Key, which the forecast from the National Hurricane Center says it's gonna, you should be good by Monday. You should, but let's continue to watch it. But yeah, for now, it does appear that you'd be okay. We'll just have to see what this thing looks like. Obviously, if a thing forced through a hurricane and moves through Perdido Key in that area, which is, it's not a likely scenario, but I don't know, right? I'd like to say that timing-wise you'd be okay, but I don't think, we'll just have to wait and see. Timing-wise, for now, though, you look good. That's all I'll say. All right, so that's the latest on Tropical Storm. It could, Ralph. It could intensify into a cane. I don't know what percentage I would put on it, but it definitely could, depending on what it looks like when it gets to the, when it gets to the Gulf. Could be Tanya could be very similar to Elsa. The track looks similar, doesn't it? This one could be a little bit more west, but um, this is kind of following the pattern of. It's fascinating. There's something that my buddy over in Florida, Wesh or Orlando, Eric Burris, he does these long range tracking for hurricanes, and I really want to have him on here to kind of talk about what he does. And it's a fascinating thing because like these storms go through cycles, and there's different patterns that storms follow, and this would be part of the Ada pattern from last year. If you remember Tropical Storm Ada, it followed and kind of went toward the Tampa area, and this is following the same Ada pattern that Elsa followed. It was part of that the cycle or the pattern. And so if you believe long-term forecasting, then we might see something similar to that, in the long run. It's pretty cool what he's doing. If you don't follow Eric Burris, go check it out. And he does this long-range thing. It calls it the LRC. It's pretty cool, but it's kind of a thing where like all tropical systems fall under a certain cycle, and it kind of gives you clues as to where it could go long-term. So something cool there that he's doing over there. But yeah, this one could be similar to Elsa's track and Ada's track from last year. So that's the latest on Tropical Storm Fred. It's only a 40-mile-per-hour tropical storm right now. It could strengthen into near a hurricane or even a hurricane later on in the forecast once it gets back into the Gulf of Mexico. So that's the latest. Thank you guys for joining tonight on this Tropics After Dark. I'll continue to keep y'all posted on the page. Share this video if you'd like to, but stay with the page and I'll keep y'all posted throughout the entire